What happens when the only thing you have to offer, or the only thing that anyone cares about or wants from you, is the drama? And that's the very thing you're trying to separate yourself from. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have been plagued by a dark cloud of their own making. And it overshadows everything that they try to do, especially lately. And it's exactly why none of their recent efforts to shift their image or do image repair are working. And instead, there's a constant undermining happening. Lately, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle have been trying to do more normal things, regular celebrity stuff, like going to sporting appearances or bringing publicity to charities or launching a product line, pushing Invictus. All of these things are very standard activities, objectively speaking, when it comes to celebrities or public figures. Honestly, on paper, nothing to write home about here. These are pretty normal things that celebrities do or try. But the problem is, no one is talking about the jam or the loose spread or the charities, at least not in a good way. Because for years, Harry and Meghan trained the press and the public to expect exactly one product from them: scorched earth controversy and drama. They spent years building this dark cloud of controversy that's now calcified in the public opinion. They fed their controversial image time and time again with Oprah and Spare and Netflix projects and social media, interviews, and endless trickles of leaks and rebuttals to the press. So much so that now we've heard for nearly a year that Harry and Meghan are trying to put the drama behind them. Isn't that special? They're ready to move past the family drama, and they just can't shake this vibe, this cloud, because their entire brand identity has been built on spilling the tea and stirring the pot and creating drama, settling scores, and publicly exposing private moments of the royals and themselves, and filing court cases and doing interviews complaining. And they've done all of that in very dramatic fashion, too. At first, it worked. You got to give it to them. At first, it worked because it was a recipe for media success. Not their success, per se, the Sussexes, but the media conglomerates. Heck yes. Money-making machine. You have a notoriously private and inconceivably famous family having a rogue who's willing to sell secrets, true or not. That is an undeniable goldmine of content. Everybody's curious about the royal family. They're like the most famous royal family in the world, and everyone knows who they are, and they're also incredibly popular and well-liked. Queen Elizabeth II was widely considered the most respected and visible monarch of all time, with record approval and being the longest reigning monarch in history. I mean, very significant public figure who spanned across generations. So Harry and Meghan's strategy to create a sensational, albeit largely fictitious, storyline out of the royals and their time working for the monarchy was a recipe for media success. But notice the distinction between media success and personal and reputational success. Harry and Meghan had like a three-pronged approach against them. The media was willing to milk them for all that they were worth, all that they were willing to give up, giving them as much airtime as they desired as long as they were giving something juicy, true or not. And the royal family was not willing to get in the mud with them, refused to complain or explain. They were only willing to give Harry and Meghan enough rope to self-destruct. And no one, including the Sussexes, were looking out for their long-term reputation. Absolutely no one cared about that. If the Sussexes had cared about it, then they probably would not have taken those media deals, but They did not think through the long-term implications to their reputation, and that is their own fault. You reap what you sow, isn't that right? So that media success did not bleed out or carry over to personal or reputational success, not at all. In fact, it was the opposite. And now they have learned the hard way that a positive reputation can never be materialized out of tearing someone else down publicly, especially without airtight accuracy and factual accounts. So while their projects made the producers millions and some even broke records, it also laid a trap. In PR, there is a concept called the controversy shadow. When you build a house on pure shock value, the shadow it casts is so massive that it completely eclipses anything else that you try to build next to it. And Harry and Meghan built a high rise of controversy, just month after month, layer upon layer, year after year. And now that shadow is so big and so long and so far that they may never outrun it. And it does create a cloud over As Ever and Invictus and everything else that they have tried to do. When your audience is conditioned to tune in for a car crash, they are not going to stick around to watch you obey the speed limit. Even though they have explicitly stated in interviews and via spokespersons or sources close to the couple, Harry and Meghan themselves, that they want to reconcile with the royal family, that they're done with all of the drama, that they miss their family. I would be surprised if Meghan ever says another word about the royals. That sort of a thing has been circulating for like a year now. It doesn't matter. Nobody cares, and nobody believes them. But perhaps more importantly, although a controversial image doesn't take long to develop, it is particularly difficult to shake, especially if you keep feeding it, like Harry and Meghan have done. Once it's there, it has immense power to undermine everything, no matter how positive it may be, because it shifts the public perception. People begin to view positive acts as cover-ups to past bad behaviors, or excuses, or distractions, or as self-serving. The public becomes suspicious of charity visits, that you're only doing them to counter your controversies, that any run-of-the-mill acts or good deeds are immediately viewed as a diversion or trying to balance out the controversies and proven lies that you've told in the past. The overall impact to public image is therefore devastating. The public no longer trust your intentions because of past controversies and ruthless lying and attacking. Therefore, instead of viewing a charity visit or support for Invictus as somebody just trying to do something nice or lend their platform or contribute to society positively, instead it's viewed as, look at how good I do here. You should forget about everything else that I've done or said in the past. For example, most recently, Meghan Markle's hypocritical behaviors overshadowed her Geneva visit and the Lost Screen Memorial. It undermined her stance on the issue. Instead of taking the feedback and vowing to get off Instagram as some sort of sign of protest and demonstrating her priorities, she doubled down and tried to justify her behavior. The media didn't care so much about the cause, they cared about the drama and the hypocrisy and the contradictions and the lack of public interest and the giant man pants. Had she taken that feedback and said, you know what? I'm getting off Instagram just to prove how bad Meta is, and just to prove that celebrities should band together and use their power and influence and massive ability to increase revenue for social media, and do a social media blackout to try to motivate them and force them into creating better protections or whatever it is. Instead of using her power and influence that she thinks she has for good, no, she tries to make excuses for herself and gaslight herself and anybody reading it that covering somebody's face or hiding somebody's face therefore delivers agency and protection and privacy when it does not. If you missed my video on that, I'll link it for you. Instead, she tries to justify her actions. But looking at the Geneva experience, all the mainstream media, all the commentary centered on the hypocrisy, that controversy shadow over the event. In Australia, for example, whether they did charity visits or not, even just the business activities alone were drawing criticisms. They were overshadowed by the controversy of a hybrid visit, or the security expenses, or the ethics of selling clothes or selling access. When the trip was said and done, no one really cared about the charities or the initiatives or the causes. People only cared about the drama and the controversy. These examples illustrate and demonstrate the exact PR concept of this controversy cloud overshadowing everything. Because they prioritized selfish, high drama projects for years, a huge portion of the public and the press will never view the Sussexes as anything but a drama, a soap opera, a cheap reality show with manufactured drama. The guilty pleasure of how did they screw up this time, or what lies are they telling now? Can't wait to see this crash and burn. This is complicated by the fact that they never cut off the drama. The sink is still leaking. There was no point at which they actually set down their controversial takes and complaints and actually let them lie. It's bad enough that the first impressions and the post-Megxit reintroduction to the public were centered around drama and controversy, but they've continued even after saying that they want reconciliation and are leaving the drama behind them. Meghan still stirs that pot one more time when she brings up the "I'm the most bullied woman in the world, man or woman, and nobody helped me" in Australia. Or when Harry, reignited his security battles or is still pushing through with his court cases. These are examples of continuing to pick at the scabs. And this phenomena really comes into sharper focus when you consider that normally anybody, celebrity or not, public figure, what have you, doing a charity visit or serving food at a shelter is rarely criticized. And almost never is it labeled as controversial. But for the Sussexes, it is. And it's their own fault. It doesn't matter how normal or safe the activity is from a PR standpoint, it will be criticized simply because it's them. And when the positives are clouded over by the negatives of Harry and Meghan's reputations, it undermines any potential there for brand repair or image repair or just simply trying to move forward doing something right. The controversy shadow completely prevents their public image from being shaped by the charity work that they do. Instead, their public image is rigidly cemented in that controversy. Charity visits simply cannot compete with the controversial high drama public image that they built. And sadly, it's a journalism fact that the tame will never outpace the sensational in reach or views or engagement, which is exactly why their years of exclusively indulging in dramatics was a trap that they laid for themselves and fell into. I'm sure they thought that they were digging that hole for the royal family to fall into. But the royals maintained the never complain, never explain mantra and won the PR battle with intelligence and discipline, control and focus, and just plain media savvy. So now when Meghan rebrands her lifestyle label or when they're honored as Humanitarians of the Year, the public reaction is not applause. It's either apathy, where's the drama, or skepticism. What's the ulterior motive here? Because you cannot spend years monetizing your own personal controversies and then suddenly demand the public treat you like a boring, noble philanthropist. You can't unring the bell. The controversy shadow is permanent. Once you sell the public the most intimate, controversial details of your life, that becomes your baseline. Everything else is just background noise. And this started even before Megxit happened. Remember in South Africa, Meghan's "I'm not okay" thing. That overshadowed the whole visit, which was why the royal family was disappointed with that tour. Because the publicity then became all about Meghan and whether or not she's okay and who's failing to ask her if she's okay. None of the work, none of the initiatives, none of the causes, none of the diplomacy was featured. The media only went for that sensational, high drama. Megan thinks that nobody's asked her if she's okay. How absurd is that? This is exactly why the never complain, never explain mantra is so powerful in PR and the gold standard when it comes to publicity or public image. Because the second you start trying to explain, you create a dynamic where your choices and your actions are up for debate. It shows that you're trying to convince people of something. If you have conviction and integrity and you know that you're doing the right thing, you don't have to explain it. And the second you start complaining, you're not going to endear yourself to anyone. It is incredibly unlikable for somebody in a privileged position to be complaining about small things. So what do you guys think? Is it possible for a public figure to ever fully pivot away from a controversial era? Or are they stuck in that shadow forever? There are a few examples that I can think of like actors who had a controversial past, like Robert Downey Jr. I feel like is a good example, but he worked really hard to get through that era, and it took a long time. Problematic Robert Downey Jr. and the one who like I know from movies I've seen growing up are two completely different individuals separated by at least a decade, in which he was very, very quiet. And at no point did he blame other people for his problems or his struggles. He took accountability. He put his head down and he worked hard at repairing his personal life, and his public image followed suit eventually. He did not go out and attack people in the public eye. His controversies were rooted in bad behaviors, bad choices, bad lifestyle things that then were corrected. So it's not really comparable, but I'm interested to see what you guys have to say in the comments. Thank you for joining me today. I sincerely hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time. Have a happy day, everybody. Bye.